Hello painters, it's great to see you again. Today I'm going to do a little bit of resin. So I've had quite a few questions because I've been using resin on tiles for a little while, also doing a few little bits of resin art, and I think it's something that I'm getting more and more interested in, and so I'm going to be doing more resin art in the future and lots of sparkly things which are going to make me very happy. But today I thought I would give you a bit of a lowdown if you want to add some resin to your tiles. So I've got a few tiles over here. You will have seen these before because I've been using these for a few tutorials and things recently. These have just been some practice tiles. I had a little bit of leftover paint. Then I used some texture paste and a stencil to create a design. Then I used a really lovely glitter paint to add some extra sparkle to it. And now I'm going to top these off with a layer of resin. So I thought it would be great if I went through everything with you and showed you exactly how to do it, because I know resin can be kind of scary. The first time I did it I was a little bit nervous too, so I appreciate exactly how you feel. So let me go through all of the things that you're going to need. First of all, resin. I have got two brands here. This is Art Resin and this one is Envirotex Light Pour On. I've worked with both and they both seem to work exactly the same. So in terms of which resin that you choose, it basically comes down to what can you get in your area and what is within your budget. Typically the art resin tends to be more expensive. It is aimed more at the craft and artist market than some of the other resins that you will find online, and it is reported to have more in the way of UV stabilizers. So if you're using resin over the top of a white paint, for example, or your painting may be exposed to sunlight, then it's always a good idea to go with a resin that has a UV stabilizer so that it won't yellow as much over time. So I've not used either of these products long enough or put any of them in the sun or any of my artworks in the sun to be able to give you a personal opinion on that, but there is some information online, so I encourage you to go and look up all that kind of information when you make your own choice of what resin to use. So most resins are mixed 1-to-1, which means it will come in two separate containers. One will be your resin and one will be your hardener, and you mix them equal parts by volume. Mix them up well. Typically your resin will come with instructions that will tell you to mix the resin for around 3 minutes, and unless you get the resin equal, you know, if you had this much resin and this much hardener or vice versa, you're going to end up with a resin that doesn't cure properly, and it could be kind of sticky still on your tiles, doesn't really harden. So very important, always make sure to use the exact volume of resin and exact volume hardener, follow the manufacturer's instructions, and always make sure to mix according to what they tell you in the instructions, typically around 3 minutes. When you mix the resin together originally, it's going to be a little bit cloudy, but the more you mix it and the more you mix the two together, then it will become clear. Of course you will get bubbles, but we'll talk about that later. So you'll need something to mix in. You can either use disposables like plastic cups, or you can use silicone and plastic, in which case you can pour the resin, leave maybe your stick in the side of the cup like this, and as it hardens you should be able to pour the whole lot out and be able to reuse your plastic or silicone items again. So for the purposes of this today, I'm going to use one of these. It's actually not a plastic cup. It's made with corn flour or something. It's a biodegradable cup. So I'm going to use that and a wooden stick and just throw those out afterwards, because resin is messy and sticky. So I've got my old clothes on. This is my old painting and crafting clothes. You'll always see me probably most of the time in this pink t-shirt. It's got all kinds of bits of glue and paint and everything stuck on it. So don't do resin in your good clothes, because if you were to touch something, it's going to stick and it will never come out. Also, gloves. I like to wear 2 pairs of gloves, because once I get one pair sticky, if I then want to pick up my torch or something, then I get resin on it. So it's a good idea if you wear 2 or even 3 pairs of gloves, you can pull off the sticky ones and you've got clean ones underneath that you can still work with. So I also use one of these. So if I want to mix up small amounts of resin, for example, I'm doing 1 or 2 tiles, then I'll just use one of these tablespoons or something, or a mixing spoon, or a small cups from the dollar store, and I can mix small amounts of resin and get it equal by using tablespoons, which helps when I'm doing small amounts. In terms of cleanup, get yourself some alcohol, and I also use some just general wipes. These tend to be pretty good, you know, providing you're catching your resin when it's wet. You can just wipe it up with a wipe, and you can also soak your wipe in alcohol, which should make it a little bit easier to clean around. But basically once it hardens or gets really, really sticky, cleanup is going to be difficult anyway. So make sure you're doing it when it's fresh if you need to clean anything up. Whoops, that's fallen off the side. So I also use this one. This is freezer paper. It says plastic coated, and it's kind of glossy on one side, and I put this down on my surface just to protect everything, and the resin just drips down onto this, and then I can just throw the whole lot away. But if you have resin drips which are coloured or which turn out quite pretty, you can actually peel them off from this freezer paper, and if you wanted to use them in some kind of artworks, you can. So let's see, what else have I got here? I've got some tape. Now, if we take a look at the back of my tiles, or the back indeed of any painting that you're going to do, you need to tape off the back, because when the resin drips over the side, you'll get little drips along here under the edge, and those will harden, and they're really hard to get off. You can try and poke them off with a knife or sand them with something, but the easiest way, as I have here, is just to tape off close to the edges with a masking tape like you see here, and then once the resin is hardened, you can just peel this off and all the little drips will come away, and I will show you that once my tiles are ready to show you. So get yourself some tape. Also, one of these. Shall I model it for you? It's my best Darth Vader impression. Now, some of the resins, like the art resin for example, say there are no VOCs, so there are no bad fumes coming off them. However, even people are sensitive to all kinds of things. So even if it says there are no VOCs, if you find that you are sensitive, you have problems with your lungs, asthma or anything like that, please make sure to get a proper mask. Not just one of those which have got like the little, like a decorating mask, because that's just for dust and particles. You need one which has the proper respirator. So have a look online. I'll provide some links to the one that I got, and always make sure to work in a very, very well ventilated area. And if you have any concerns at all about fumes, toxicity, anything like that, get your mask on while you're using your resin. So a couple more items. We have a torch. If you're familiar with acrylic pouring, you've probably already got one of these, and this is used to pop the bubbles in your resin. So when we mix up and it looks really bubbly, it looks like a disaster, but a quick blast with the torch, which you'll see later, and those will all disappear. I also have one of these plugged in underneath my table. This is a heat gun. You might buy something like this, or maybe your other half has one for stripping paint. So when you turn it on, you get it's very, very hot at the end. Not so much air. Some have more airflow than others. This one particularly is more heat. It's a lower end model, but you can get some that have lots and lots of different settings, and some of them will blow more air or more heat than others. And this is basically used to heat up your resin. So once you have it on your tiles, or if you're working on a larger piece, then you can warm the resin with this one, and it's going to help the resin be more fluid and help it to move around a little bit better. So we may not use this today just for our tiles, because we're just doing a quick project. But if you are going to do a lot of resin artwork, then you can get yourself one of these. And I think that is pretty much everything I've gone through on my desk. So I'm going to measure up my resin, and I'm going to mix it together, and then I'll meet you back here and we'll start work on these tiles. Okay, so my resin has been mixed for 3 minutes, and when you do mix, just make sure that you go around the side of the cup with your stir stick and scrape along the bottom and make sure that you're mixing everything in really, really well. Now I'm going to leave the mask off for a few minutes just so I can talk to you, but obviously remember, if you're sensitive, then keep yours on. So now I've mixed up a random amount of resin today, because there is a calculator on the Art Resin website, and again I'll put a link where you can find that, and that tells you how much resin you need. I only had a little bit left though in those bottles, so I just mixed the whole lot in together and we'll see how many I cover. Now all I need to do basically is just get my stick out of the way, and if I pick up one of my tiles, I just need to pour a little bit of resin up here into the center. And it really goes quite a long way, so you can see how much I've added here to the tile. And now we can either tip it about, or you can use your stick to spread the resin around, or you can just get in there with your gloved hand and spread it around. Now the resin self-levels, so even though you're spreading it with your finger, you're just getting the resin out to the edge, and you'll be making, you know, little marks and things with your finger, but the resin is going to find its own level and it's going to lie out nice and smooth. So that looks about right. So as I'm doing it, there we go, as I'm spreading everything around on the tile and making sure it's all smooth and covered, I can take my finger and just run it along the side of the tile. So I'm going to move the resin just to the edge a little bit, and then just dab it smooth along the side of the tile with my finger. The same here, make sure it's up to and going over the edge, smooth a little bit with my finger. Last side, and then this one is done. So I haven't used a whole bunch of resin. I've been quite economical, and I've just spread it around with my hand, and you probably, there we go, you can just see a little bit there. But although it may look a little bit uneven now, as it's going to smooth out on its own and create that nice smooth glossy surface. So before I put it down, I'm just going to run my fingers along the side again, smooth out any drips where the resin might be going over the edge, and then I will set that on my cup. So it doesn't look as though I have too much of a problem, but I'm going to do a few more of the other tiles. Too much of a problem with bubbles in it, but I'm going to just do the other tiles and then we'll run over with the torch. Okay, so I've done all 4 tiles and my hands are a little bit sticky, so I can just now take off that extra pair of gloves, which is all sticky there, and I've got some nice clean ones underneath so I can touch my torch and things without things getting sticky. Okay, so now I can look down, I can see the surface on my tiles. They're looking really good and nice and smooth and glossy already. And because I've got glitter in here, you really can't see a lot of trouble with bubbles. However, bubbles will form in the resin, and if you don't get rid of them, you will see them when the resin dries. So a way to get rid of them is to use your torch. And just quickly go over the surface. You can't see so clearly on mine because the tiles have got glitter in them and it's kind of hiding any bubbles that might be there, but I could see that the bubbles were popping as I went over with my torch. Now you're not heating it. You don't want to get the resin really hot, and there's another reason of course why you'd want to use your mask, because if you're going to heat the resin with the torch, that's not a good thing. So you're gently warming it, just going over the top very lightly with the torch itself, and that brings the bubbles to the surface and expands them. Now you don't need to do this just once, because my experience has shown that in about 10 minutes, if I came back and had a look look again, there might be more bubbles that weren't there before, and that's because they're rising up through the surface they may be deep down in the resin, they're going to move up to the surface. So for about the next hour, every 10 minutes I'll come in and I'll just check over, I'll make sure the surface is smooth, there's no little bits of dust or anything on there, and I'll go over again with the torch to get rid of any bubbles. Another good thing about dust and things, your resin is going to take a long time to dry. I'm going to leave mine for 24 hours before I come back to it, and I've got all my doors and windows open. I have a cat and he's very furry, and any little bits of dust or fur or anything that you have, even, you know, an eyelash can fall into it, and so you want to avoid that. I've got a box over on the side, and once I've finished giving my giving a little torch over again, I'm going to just clear everything out of my surface, put the box carefully over the top, and hopefully avoid any more dust or cat hair arriving on my resin while it dries. So that's all I need to do for now. I'm just going to go over quickly again with my torch, bring the box over, and then I'm going to leave it for 24 hours, and I'll come back and we'll take a look and see how they've done. So it's the next morning and the tiles are looking great. There's a perfect finish. The shine, so smooth, and you may or may not be able to see, probably can't, the sun's not shining through, but the glitter on here, now that I've put that resin on, the glittery finish on it looks even better, and it's perfectly leveled out this area here where I had the texture paste. So even though these were just little practice pieces, they've turned out really great, and I think these are going to go on my coffee table with pride of place there. Now there's one more thing that I wanted to show you, and that's just the back of the tile. If you take a look, you can see where all of the little droplets of the resin are. Now on the ones where I've taken off the tape, you can see they've got a lovely, smooth, perfect finish. But I am going to go on in a next video and just show you how I finish the back of my tiles with some cork, but that's for another day. For this one, you can see where we've got all the little resin bits, and the good news is we just pull off the tape and all that resin comes off with it, and then we get a nice smooth finish. I do a little bit more, and as I pull the tape away, all those beads of resin that are stuck just here, they're all just going to come off, and I get a nice smooth finish. Whoops, out of camera, there we go, and it all just peels off, and then you get a perfectly resined tile. So thank you very much for watching with this one. I hope it's given you the confidence to work with a little bit of resin and use some clear coating for putting resin on your tiles or on your canvases or other pieces of artwork. It's really not that difficult, and once you've given it a try and seen what an absolutely gorgeous result you get with it, I think you'll be hooked like I have been. So thank you very much for watching. I do hope you'll subscribe here on my new channel, and I look forward to sharing lots of more crafty tips with you. There'll be some more painting, more pouring, more resin work for sure, lots more arts and crafty type things, and I'd love to have you following along with me. So don't forget to subscribe and hit that little bell icon so that you'll get notified when I put up a new video. And I'll see you soon in an upcoming video when we'll talk about how to finish the back of your tiles. See you then.